one underlying theme of everything we're talking about here is there's so many misconceptions when you get into Medicaid, and people believing, like you said earlier, that it's only for the poor, or that they won't be able to get into the facility they want if they're on Medicaid. And some of this is just purely misinformation, but there also is some truth in it, as far as, like you touched on earlier, with some facilities requiring you private pay for a certain amount of time. But another mistake that I think people make is if they have, I don't know, $50,000 or $60,000, and they can afford to pay for a while, going into a facility without keeping Medicaid in mind, when in reality, unless you're relatively wealthy, you're going to end up on Medicaid eventually. Can you just walk me through the situation? Like, what happens if somebody goes into an assisted living facility, let's say, and they've got $50,000 or $60,000, they private pay for a while, they run out of resources? What happens next?
So if there's a private pay requirement at that facility, or if they don't participate in Medicaid, then there aren't that many options. You're looking at finding the money from someone else, maybe selling a home that you would otherwise treat as an exempt resource, or at least borrowing against it, trying to do whatever you can to pay for that care in the facility where you are. And if they eventually will accept Medicaid, you have a certain amount of time that you need to pay for that care privately. It's unfortunate when people move into facilities with a misconception about whether they're going to have enough money to pay for the care there for the long run. And it's very disappointing for people if they do run out of assets and aren't able to convert to Medicaid, either because they haven't made it through the private pay period or because the facility just doesn't participate in Medicaid. So planning is really important. You want to know not only what is the private pay period and what is the cost of care now, but is it likely to increase over the next, say it's a 2-year private pay requirement, what's the care likely going to cost a year and a half from now? So you can budget appropriately and not just try to cut it as close as you possibly can. You always want to leave a buffer when you're saving for long-term care. Another example is when people have to go to a much higher level of care. They've only saved for this level of care, but now they need care at a higher level that's going to be more expensive. So budgeting and planning is really important. If you do run out of money while you're living in a care facility, it is worthwhile to talk to the owner of the facility to see if you can negotiate, maybe privately paying the Medicaid reimbursement rate for a while, or paying what you can for a while. Sometimes they can be somewhat flexible. It's not a waste of time to talk with them about your particular situation. And sometimes, frankly, adult children, we end up paying to help out with our parents, to help get them through private pay periods so that they can be in a facility that they'll enjoy more in the long term than trying to immediately transfer to a facility that will take Medicaid right away. In some communities, there are wonderful facilities that will accept Medicaid right away. But in Washington, as anyone who lives here knows, the closer you are to Seattle, the more expensive the care is going to be, and the more likely it is that you're going to have a private pay period. Right.
Are there, what are some of the other major sort of misconceptions or mistakes that you see people making? And what is it that, what advice can you offer as an elder law attorney to prevent some of these?
Yeah. So sometimes people come in and they've already spent down to the last, they're down to their last few $1,000s. There's not a lot of planning we can do. Sometimes we can help people get onto the Medicaid program or help them figure out how to get onto the program. But if they'd come in a year or two before, we might have been able to help them take advantage of some of the resource allowances that they could have kept while applying for Medicaid. Another is misguided gifting. People hear, oh, hey, if I have money, then I won't be able to qualify for Medicaid. And I've just, suffered a health setback or been diagnosed with a condition that makes me think I might need long-term care. I'll gift away everything I can now, and then I'll be able to go into Medicaid. And maybe they even know that there's a 5-year look back in Washington. So they won't be able to qualify for Medicaid for the next 5 years, but they think, oh, I'll be able to get through that period of time. Well, it's really a problem if you've done this without proper planning, because if you're out of money and you can't get the money that you've gifted back, then it's not only a problem for you, it's also a problem for the people you've gifted the money to. So you may be trying to do something nice for your family, but you've actually made things difficult for them, because our state's going to go looking to them for this money to be returned. So I'd say over gifting and misguided gifting are unfortunately pretty common mistakes. And then I guess the third mistake is just kind of a feeling of hopelessness that sometimes people have, that they just won't be able to pay for long-term care. And so they stay at home without assistance for too long, to the point where they actually have injuries and a decline in their condition because they're not receiving the care they need. And so, I would say if you think you need care, if you're not able to manage your own activities of daily living, then it's really worth exploring whether or not you might qualify for a program, because these programs are set up to help people live longer, healthier lives. And if you need that kind of care, then it's, or if your parent does, or, someone in your life does need this level of care, it's usually much better to go ahead and find out and explore how to receive that care, whether it's in your home or in a facility, rather than just trying to avoid needing that help.
Yeah, right. There's sort of this I don't know, this American notion of wanting to stay in your home, living independently without getting any help, as long as humanly possible, is sort of going out with your boots on mentality. But, in many cases that's admirable, but, you also don't want to, you don't want to deprive yourself of necessary medical care or personal care and end up accelerating whatever conditions you have. And oftentimes, something as simple as home health care a few hours a day might make all the difference.
Yeah, and in Washington, we have a pretty new waiver program that's called MAC and TSOA, so MAC and TSOA. And these are programs set up for people who are really close to qualifying for Medicaid, or they already qualify, but they're still receiving care at home. And so there are some benefits available for people who fit those categories, so that they have some assistance with providing care at home. And it's great for everyone in the state, because it helps stretch out the time that people are able to receive care off of Medicaid, just by giving them a little bit of support and giving their care providers a little bit of support so they can continue providing that care.
Well, it's great to see that, Washington seems to be recognizing this fact that if you can keep the person home longer, or keep them in a lower level of care with some state assistance, in the long run, it's cheaper than having the person deteriorate and end up in a nursing home.
Right.
And hopefully other states, or all states, will eventually follow this trend. A lot of states have these programs where they have 10-year waiting lists, and so it really doesn't do anybody any good, unfortunately.